Now, I said before this week's was probably going to be something along the lines of finding the crater site in Fallout 4. I got sidetracked along the way of looking into the history of the Great Khan. So that's what we're doing today, because why not, right? So we're going to start off with a little out-of-universe explanation for the Great Khan. The Khans, as they were back in the day. Fallout is retro-futurist. We all know that. But a lot of historical events that have happened in our world have happened in Fallout, but are different. So look up the moon landing in Fallout compared to the moon landing in real life, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because by that point in time, the United States had restructured itself into 13 commonwealths. Story for a different time, though. Right now, I'm talking about Great Khans. Well, the Khans. In Fallout, and in real life. Well, let's start with real life first, before I go getting too sidetracked there. After World War II, the men coming back who fought in the war created motorcycle clubs. One to have other people to hang around that understood their experiences, and two, you can almost think of it as a therapeutic bonding thing, right? You want to be around people that understand what you've been through and the hardships you've had to deal with, that can maybe help you through some of the same things they themselves have went, right? And from that, you get like the Hells Angels, the bunch of different motorcycle clubs. The one that we're going to focus on, though, right now is Mongols, as you might figure. Leader of which, if you didn't know, was known as the Khan. Kind of self-explanatory on why the Mongols are a derivative of, well, what inspired the Khans. Now, a very unique thing here in Fallout is they had multiple wars leading up to the Great War. The Great War, as it was, is the war that ended all wars. I know. But it's when the nukes destroyed everything. That's the Great War. It started and ended on one day within a few hours. Caused the end of the world. Leading up to the Great War, though, you had Resource War. This went on since like the 2050s into the 2070s. They were after petroleum, uranium, coal, that sort of stuff. And that is also why China invaded Alaska to get the oil reserves under Alaska. Now, that leads us to, in Fallout, you'll see them all over the place. You'll see, you'll see the bikes all over the place. Motorcycles were everywhere, probably more so than in the real world. And you'll see billboards and the like. So there's most definitely motorcycle clubs that existed in Fallout, as you would think. Now, that brings us to Vault 15. The actual history inside Fallout. Vault 15 is the vault that the Great Khans came from. The Khans, the Vipers, the Jackals, and the people that founded the New California Republic. Ones that made Shady Sands that then went on to the New California Republic. This vault was said to have an experiment of just having people with different belief systems all brought into the same place. I think that's a polite way of saying they had multiple criminal organizations funneled into the vault, right? After one generation, you let people out, and 3/4 of the group decides to split off into separate raider groups. Something weird either went on in the vault, or they were just different criminal groups to begin with. Like, the Vipers. Most likely a street gang. The Jackals. Most likely some type of, not really organized crime, but more closely associated with pushers than gangbangers, right? And then you have the Khans, motorcycle club, and then the people that founded Shady Sands, most likely some type of organized crime family that loved their bureaucracy, as it were. Now, while Aradesh was a pacifist, his daughter was not, and many of the others from the vault that came with them were not either. Doesn't matter, right? Because we're talking about the Great Khans right now. I'll probably go over that theory in another video. So, back to the Khans. The Khans, after having left the vault, set up not too far from Shady Sands. They became raiders, they became thieves. They sometimes traded when it was profitable. When it wasn't, they did whatever they could to get money and whatever supplies they needed. They'd kill people, they'd kidnap people, they'd sell people into slavery, you name it, they'd do it. Led by a guy simply known as Death Hand. I know, weird name for someone that's like second generation out of the vault. Well, actually, he would have been born in the vault. Around the same time Aradesh was. Doesn't matter. But he led the Khans sometime and made them wonderfully sustainable raiders. Now, not too long after they get fully established by Death Hand there, they brutalize the Jackals. Right, we come across some remnants of the Jackals in Fallout New Vegas, but at this point in time they were much larger, but still smaller than Khans. And the Khans brutalized them to a point to where they had to flee the area. And then they literally went from pretty much New California to the Mojave, running away from the Khans and what they did to them, which is just insane. Now, the Khans being a warrior people at this point, going through raiding, taking slaves, the whole 9 yards of any good raider group back in the day. Well, the strong take from the weak, and so Death Hand's son, Garl, yes, Garl, not Carl, Garl, weird post-apocalyptic naming. Garl, Death Hand, kills his father. Usurps Khan title, leader of the Khans, has everything about his father stricken from record. Every image, every utterance. We don't even know his first name, we just know him as Death Hand. So Garl, Death Hand, takes control of the Khans. They start raiding closer and closer to Shady Sands, and eventually they attack Shady Sands for slaves and take Tandy. Tandy, if you didn't know, is the daughter of Aradesh. Aradesh and Tandy would later go on to found the New California Republic, being the first and second presidents. But Aradesh, being a pacifist, could not go and rescue his daughter. They also could not spare individuals from Shady Sands, which was just a small settlement at this point. Do not believe the Fallout show that makes it look like Shady Sands was built in some type of ruin or outside of a ruin or something. Shady Sands is a post-war settlement that was built from the ground up post-war. Okay? So, they enlist an outsider, someone who just kind of wandered into town, and that is, well, the Vault Dweller, the player character from the first Fallout game. You go walking into the camp of the Great Khans, rescue Tandy, and you pretty much kill everyone in the base. The only surviving member of this entire debacle is Garl Death Hand's son. God, that guy's name is terrible. Garl Death Hand's son, Darion, I guess how it's pronounced. Darion, sure. He's the sole survivor and the last full-blooded Khan that there is. He flees. He hides first, then he flees after, and he gets away. So, he's a coward. Now, after that, it is said that the Khans, I'm going to keep doing that. Great Khans, new Khans, it's annoying. But the Khans, as we know it, dissolve completely. And with this new stability in the region, Shady Sands starts to expand. That again, story for another time. Not going to get too much into it. But we'll continue the story of the Khans. Well, actually, the story of the Khans is over at that point. The Khans are gone. So, start on the next chapter. Now, sometime between 2161 and 2241, I know, large gap in time, but that's how it goes with Fallout. The new Khans are established by Darion Deathan, or just Darion at this point. And the new Khans are not the Khans that we know because they're dead. Darion's the only one left. But they are mercenaries that are brought in and paid to be mercenaries for Khans. Many of them actually like the belief system of the Khans and decide that that's what they are. Think Mandalorians from Star Wars, if you right? You can become a Khan at this point. So they get reestablished. They hunt and they search for a base and some place to call home, and eventually they just return home to what's left of Vault 15. Whilst in Vault 15, Darien understands that this is pretty much the birthplace of the New California Republic that exists at this point. So they need a cover. So they start bringing in refugees to just kind of live along the outside the vault to keep people away. To say that they delve into the vault to get technologies to sell as scrappers, or in Fallout terms, prospectors. And that is how that went for a time. Until, wanting revenge for his family and what happened to the Khans, the new Khans start raiding NCR caravans. Not the best idea at that point in time. Then comes along another wanderer, President Tandy, at this point in time, says, hey, I need something from the old vault that my people came from. Computer system. You mind running on over there and getting it for us? So the Chosen One, the player character from Fallout 2, goes to Vault 15. And upon getting to Vault 15, they talk to the people outside, and the people outside pretty much tell them, yeah, no, the new Khans are inside living. Push comes to shove. Next thing you know, the Chosen One kills Darien, scattering the new Khans, as it were. That happens in about 2241, give or take. They also retrieve the parts, bring them back for the NCR, and then the surrounding area, known as the Squat, surrounding area of Vault 15, is annexed by the NCR and becomes a minor city-state area. You could almost consider it like a county, if you will, of the NCR by this point. And that right there, that is the new Khans gone. So that's the Khans gone and the new Khans gone. As of right now, there are no more blooded Khans that exist. None. You only have some mercenaries that were scattered, that believed in what the Khans believed, and that's it. Which leads us into the next part. Now, by 2267, the Great Khans come into being, led by a man by the name of Papa Khan. Now, with his age, when the new Khans were destroyed, you could figure Papa was a member of the new Khans and decided to take the mantle of Papa for himself, reorganize the group of mercenaries into the unified peoples again. They fled from the boundary of New California to the Sierra Nevada mountains. Upon showing up in the Sierra Nevadas, they ran into another group known as the Followers of the Apocalypse. Now, instead of raiding or killing them or anything like that, the followers taught the Khans how to read, how to write, how to plant, how to make medicine, how to do all of these wonderful things. And the Khans, on the other hand, decided to just start making drugs and selling them. Because why not? Even though I guess the initial agreement between the followers and the Khans was for the Khans to make more habitual remedies and stuff for the followers to use, but that just kind of fell through. After that, the Khans moved throughout the Mojave region, raiding and doing as they would, as any good raider group there should, till eventually they came across a fairly unique place. And that fairly unique place was the Vegas Strip. Now, we don't know much about this time, but what we do know is the Khans seem to have taken the Vegas Strip for their own. This was either... We don't really know when this happened, but it's talked about in lore that Robert House had to enlist the help of the 4 tribes that would later become the 4 families on the Strip to push out the Great Khans from the area. Now, we don't know if that means that the Khans themselves had set up on the Strip before House woke up, and when House came back online, he needed them gone, or whatever. We don't know, right? What we can figure is that either they were in one of the regions on the Strip, or close to the Strip, or just somewhere in New Vegas by itself. and that they pushed out the fiends, which some were in roundabouts the vault to the little west. God, it's hot. To the west of the New Vegas Strip, and that's pretty much where they ended up and stayed between then and now, right? Once the cons were pushed out of Vegas by way of north, they were pushed from the Strip up through North Vegas out of the city. They settled in Bitter Springs. Bitter Springs was their encampment. They, of course, made drugs and whatnot there. That's pretty much their de facto home in the Mojave at this point once they were ousted from. But by this point in time, the cons have become, what's the old saying? Memory is the enemy of peace. And that's the cons at this point. When they settle Bitter Springs, they live there for a time, and then the NCR starts to push into the area. When the NCR comes, the cons remember what has happened to the cons, the new cons now. Here we are, the great cons, and of course they can't let bygones be bygones, so they start raiding NCR caravans again, killing people, and eventually it ends up with 4 NCR soldiers being taken captive and executed, I do believe. And that kicks off the whole retaliation from the New California Republic. The New California Republic decides to invade Bitter Spring. And in doing so, Great Khans did have some forewarning of this. When the NCR was rushing in, they took their elderly and their children and some of their women, and they pushed them through a pass known as, I think, the Crimson Pass, the Red Pass, which opened up into a larger area. It was their escape route. It was too bad the NCR already knew that, and they had NCR Rangers stationed on the other side. Either orders were misconstrued, or by this point in time, the NCR was done with babying the cons, especially since their history is so tied together. And the Rangers, at the end of this pass, simply opened fire on all of the elderly, the women and children of the Great Khans, killing them all. This was the Bitter Spring Massacre. This is what drove the NCR to, one, feel sorry for the Great Khans, and two, made the Great Khans hate the NCR even more. So, feeling sorry for the Great Khans, the NCR allowed them to settle in Red Rock Canyon, which is where they are to this day. Now, this brings us to Fallout New Vegas. During Fallout New Vegas, we, the player characters, see that Carl, a Fumentari from the Legion, has come east to try to talk the Khans into becoming one of the tribes of the Legion. Now, from what we can tell from the TV show of Fallout, grain of salt taken with it because it gets a lot of shit wrong, the Great Khans survived, and the Great Khans and the Legion are not on good terms. So that means there's really only one outcome from this, game-wise, and that is if the player character, the Courier 6, goes through and gets certain books from the Followers of the Apocalypse and brings them back to Great Khans, they can learn of the Mongol Empire. And you can convince them to just leave the Mojave when the Second Battle of Hoover Dam kicks off. I believe that's what they did. That they left the Mojave for some other region so that they could become strong again. And then between the end of Fallout New Vegas and the beginning of the show, they had done just that. They had become strong. And when they heard of the NCR getting fucking nuked, they took that as an opportunity. Hey, you know, that's not too bad. Maybe we go home finally. And on their way home, they realized the Legion had fractured, so that's a lot of free shit they could take. Might as well get to taking. So, they go through Legion territory, raiding as they move, eventually making their way back into New California territory, where they continue to raid, until eventually they somehow take a massive swath of land between, like, not too far from LA. Pretty much, if memory serves me right, that would have been the region around Vault 15, give or take. which would just be hilarious that the Great Khans come in and take a massive chunk of the NCR's land after everything the NCR has done to them. And that's pretty much where we're left at in modern Fallout lore. Now, what I'd personally love to see from the Great Khans at this point is they have gone through and they've learned of the Mongol Empire. They'll have learned all different things about it that they could, too. So maybe their armor goes from just looking like a motorcycle club, looking like a mixture of a motorcycle club with Mongolian aesthetics to it. Maybe their helmets get more of the plumage and stuff on it. Maybe they start wielding swords and stuff, and maybe they start riding motorcycles and stuff and become known as like cavalry units like the Mongolians were. Maybe they start their own little dynasty around Vault 15. You know, like a returning home style thing. Maybe they eventually go to war with what's left of Caesar's Legion, because the Legion seems to have taken and or wants to take part of the Vegas Strip and fractured parts of the NCR at the Vegas Strip, and it's a whole to-do with what the TV show was trying to tell us, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Well, anyway, that's pretty much the history of the Khans, the new Khans, and the Great Khan. Who knows what they're going to be called next, but we can probably figure in lore either they all died out or they're back. If you're wondering about the ones that were in Novac, well, they're probably ones that stayed behind to form an outpost, right? You form a small chain of outposts so that you can keep supply routes safe. The Romans did it. I'm pretty sure the Mongolians did it. The Chinese did it. The Japanese did it. It's just how that works, right? They're pretty much relay stations where guys can refuel, resupply, all that sort of thing. And of course, they didn't give up their drug trade or anything like that. So that's just interesting. It also explains why the ones there in Novac had enough money to pay for the ghoul from, what's-her-face. It explains why they had so much money on hand to be able to do that and all that. Anyway, it's getting late. It's getting hot. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If this is your first or second time here, hope you enjoyed the video. If this is your third time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated on when I post. If you have memberships, link is down below. $1 a month. Members only videos, $2 a month. Early access to all videos. Anything beyond that gets your name and credits, shout out, that sort of thing. We also have Discord, so if you want to yell at me in person, feel free to. And with that, I'm going to bed. Good night.